How's it going, Giants fans? My name is Alex with my co-host, Anthony Rivaldo, by the way, right there. And today we're talking about Darnay Holmes. We want to discuss, can Darnay Holmes really win a starting outside cornerback job or a slot cornerback job? Is he good enough? I got a call today from the guy who trains Darnay Holmes, Brian Walker, and he said, Darnay, he's actually looking pretty damn good. People are saying, that are going up against him that he's legit, that he can play on the outside. He's like, I've been saying this for a long time. The Giants should give him a chance to play outside cornerback. He's always played there at UCLA. He was a star there. And the Giants have tried to move into that nickel role because, they think he's a little bit undersized. And is he a little undersized? I don't know. You tell me. He's 5'10", 198 pounds. I'd argue that Adoree Jackson is smaller than him. So, there is an argument to make that maybe Darnay would be better in this man coverage heavy system that Wink Martindale is preparing to unravel for the New York Giants. And I kind of want to discuss that. Like, what is his strengths, Darnay? If it's a liability, who we think would be competing with him, and, why he might earn that job based on the lack of just overall talent on the roster at those spots. Like, it's up for grabs at the end of the day, Anthony. So before we dive into this interesting topic, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, and I've always been a big fan of Darnay Holmes and the game that he brings to the Giants. I've always thought that he was very physical for an undersized guy. You kind of mentioned maybe he's not super undersized. By most standards in the NFL, he is, but now you take a look at somebody else that the Giants just drafted in Cordell Flott. Cordell Flott is somehow 20 pounds lighter than Darnay Holmes, and people think that he might be able to compete on the outside. So it's not crazy to say Darnay Holmes could compete on the outside. And when you take a look at his career history back in college at UCLA, he did play as an outside cornerback. It wasn't until he competed at the Senior Bowl that he got some run in at the slot cornerback position. He moved to the slot at the Senior Bowl, looked really, really good at that Senior Bowl, and then NFL teams were like, okay, he's definitely going to be a slot cornerback at the next level. And it really wasn't so much of he's so limited, he can't play on the outside. It was more like, wow, this guy is dominating receivers while playing in the slot at the Senior Bowl. So we're going to have him do that in the NFL. And I think that's more of what it was. It wasn't so much of the undersized aspect and conversation about Darnay Holmes. It was just he was so good at it. So you might as well just move him to the inside full time. But now the question is coming up again because the Giants have drafted like a multitude of slot cornerbacks. You got Darnay Holmes, of course, but you also have Aaron Robinson and Cordell Flott and anyone else on this roster who might be able to move inside. So who do you have at CB2? That's the big question mark. You got Adoree Jackson at CB1, but with James Bradberry on the way out, who is going to be the CB2 for the Giants? It's got to be one of those guys that I just mentioned competing for the slot cornerback position. So I think what's really happening, they're competing for CB2, and the loser is going to get the runner up for the CB2 position is going to get that slot position. And if I had to take a guess, I do think that Darnay Holmes is going to win that CB2 spot out of all those guys. I think he's the best player, and I'm really excited to see him get to work in training camp and hopefully win that starting CB2 spot.
Yeah, look, so when it comes to Darnay Holmes, there's a couple of things you have to consider, right? So by most accounts, he's undersized to play boundary corner, but he's physical and he's aggressive. Those are two things that you love to see in outside man coverage heavy cornerbacks. If you're going to be playing press coverage and you're going to be needing your guy to stand up in coverage for a couple seconds, he also has good speed. He was a kick returner in college. And like I mentioned before, he was a boundary corner at UCLA. So he has the experience, right? It's just a matter of like, do you want to sacrifice one of his better qualities to do it? And that is he's a good tackler. He's aggressive. He's physical. He's a willing tackler. He doesn't miss many tackles at all, which I think really stands out for him, right? So, he only missed 7.4% of his tackles last year. And I think that was a huge improvement from 2020. So overall, he was a good tackler in that category. But also, like, those slot corners, you also need to have good guys that can go and make stops in the running game, right? They need to contribute in run defense, which Julian Love is a lot better at. But I think Julian Love is probably penciled in as the starting strong safety this year. I mean, unless Dane Belton come in and like kind of shake that position loose. I think that just based on the experience that Julian Love has, like they're going to give him a shot at that role. And again, this is a rebuild year. So like it doesn't hurt to give Julian Love an opportunity to win that starting role. He's consistent, doesn't miss games due to injury, knock on wood. He's pretty good at pretty much every secondary spot. He can play everywhere. So he's not a liability, right? He's decent enough in coverage. He can tackle, he's aggressive, and he's smart as hell with his versatility. So I think that really stands out. And he's played in multiple defensive systems up to this point. So I think that really helps him in a lot of ways. But Wink Martindale's system asks a lot of that strong safety to come and really help at the second level in the run game. even maybe match up in some man coverage situations, which he can do seamlessly. So I'm excited to see what he can do there. Dane Belton is going to have some trouble as a man coverage guy at the next level. I don't think that they want him in that position. They want him to play more of a zone system at the next level because that's where he's known for. He's known for his zone capabilities, reading quarterback eyes, dropping into those short portions of the field where he can just kind of sit there and read the eyes of the quarterback and then intercept passes. He had 5 interceptions last year, which really stood out. So I think that's kind of how they will look to use Dane Belton. But in scenarios where they're playing a lot of man coverage, I think Julian Love is probably the best fit at strong safety, which means that let's look at slot cornerback first and foremost, right? Who's competing there, right? Cordell Flott, Darnay. I wouldn't even like pencil in Aaron Robinson into that position right now. I'd say those two are the leaders to win reps there. Between him and Cordell Flott, Flott, like you said, he's wiry. He's 6'1", 170 pounds. He's super, super thin. If he's playing press coverage, he's going to get beat up a little bit at times against bigger slot receivers, stronger guys. He's not going to be able to hold his own in that press. If he's getting handsy at the line of scrimmage, I don't know if he's going to be able to hold his ground. He's bouncy, he's quick, he has good change of pace. But I do think he's a little bit raw and he needs time to develop. I think Darnay Holmes just offers more experience and he's a better tackler. If you ask Cordell Flott to be a tackler in the run game, and to help on those screen passes, disengage from blocks, he's going to get beat up a lot. They're going to expose him early on until he can add like 10 to 15 pounds of muscle mass. He's got to be 190 pounds, 195 pounds, probably not 195. That's a 25-pound increase. The guy must be eating McChickens all day long. But I think like 185, 180, 185 is probably where he needs to be in terms of play strength and play size to like if he can kind of maintain his speed. What are your thoughts on Cordell Flott right now in terms of like, could he be a starter? I think he's still a little bit too raw. I don't know if I trust him just yet. I think I want to give him a little bit of time to get his weight up and get his his sea legs at the NFL level before just throwing him into the starter role.
Yeah, I think if people have concerns about Darnay Holmes and his size and his ability to compete on the inside, then the concern should be far greater for Cordell Flott, whether he's competing inside or outside. 175 pounds for a player of that height is just kind of unheard of. And he also is just, he is a very quick and nimble guy, and I like what he brings to the table in coverage. He comes from LSU. LSU has churned out defensive backs over the past 10 years, basically. Just the best defensive backs in the NFL all seem to come from LSU. I like Cordell Flott's potential. I think he's going to be a good player for the Giants, but I don't know if that's going to be in year one. I do think he has a lot of kinks to work out. I think, when you take a look at a player that's that skinny, you're talking about potential injuries. Like, not only can he compete, is he going to get out muscled, but is he going to get hurt? And the Giants have had a lot of players who are very skinny, like Kadarius Toney, get hurt. Kadarius Toney, this was a question for Kadarius Toney when he entered the NFL. He is so light on his feet, and he can make everybody miss, and he's so explosive, but he's also super skinny, and he's very small, and he doesn't look like he has enough muscle on his frame, and that he's going to get injured. And then, he hurt his ankle. I don't know what the correlation is there, but maybe there is some. You never know. And when you look at Cordell Flott, it could be a similar story where he's just very skinny, and it just leads to a few injuries here and there, or it leads to him being out-muscled in a certain game versus a strong receiver. I mean, if you line him up on the outside in the NFC East, you're talking about going up against some really good wide receivers. What if he's got to line up right against A.J. Brown? A.J. Brown is one of the most physical receivers in the NFL. Now that he plays for Philadelphia, the Giants are going to have to see him twice a year. A.J. Brown is going to out-muscle Cordell Flott quite easily. To be fair, he might out-muscle Adoree Jackson as well, but Adoree Jackson I trust a little bit more as an experienced NFL veteran who's already earned the very large contract and proven to be a good player. He makes up for it with elite speed. I don't know if Cordell Flott has that level of speed right now, and I think that when you look at a guy like A.J. Brown would definitely have a field day. I mean, he is shredded. He's DK Metcalf mini, just a shorter version, but he's just as ripped as DK Metcalf. Those two out of Ole Miss are just some beasts that love to hit the weight room. And A.J. Brown and other receivers of that physical stature like that, they are going to out-muscle and out-physical a player like Cordell Flott. Now, of course, you might say that's going to happen to Darnay Holmes as well, no matter what. And maybe that's true, but I just trust Darnay Holmes now that he's entering his third season in the NFL, first of all, which I think is super important to note. because he already has a little bit more experience going up against some of these bigger NFL wide receivers that have the play strength. He knows what that play strength feels like already. And I think that's really something important to note. And also, he is 20 pounds heavier, 15 to 20 pounds heavier than Cordell Flott. So that's another thing to note. I really like Cordell Flott. I do think he's going to be a strong competitor in the slot cornerback position. I like his instincts when we watched him on film, Alex, a few months ago or a month ago or so. When we watched him on film, I really liked his instincts. I thought he had really high football IQ. He knew how to read the quarterback. He kind of plays like a safety sometimes. And there are people who think that he will make a move to safety one day. And maybe that does happen. But I do like what he brings to the table as a slot cornerback playing in zone coverage with those instincts, similarly to what Dane Belton might provide the Giants with. But Darnay Holmes, when you're talking about an experienced cornerback now, because he's entering his third season, who has the frame to at least compete on the outside and has the experience against NFL talent, that's who you want at CB2, in my opinion. So I do think that Darnay Holmes has a really good chance of winning this position. And if I had to take a look at these guys that we've just mentioned, Darnay Holmes is my clear-cut choice for CB2.
So you think Darnay over Aaron Robinson for CB2?
Personally, I do. Aaron Robinson and Darnay have both dealt with injuries, but Aaron Robinson he missed significant time last year. It took him a long time to get off the PUP list, and that does bring me with a little bit of concern. Darnay Holmes has missed games in both of those seasons, so realistically, what I think happens, Darnay Holmes as the starter at CB2, he does have more experience. That's another thing to note. A little bit more experience than Aaron Robinson. Aaron Robinson, arguably the more physical and stronger player, but again, injury concerns, experience concerns. And when you take a look at Aaron Robinson and Darnay Holmes, I think they're pretty similar, but they also have that question mark about, are they going to stay healthy? So I think what happens, Darnay Holmes as a starter, but a lot of rotation, depending on who they're playing. Let's say they're playing somebody that's really, really strong, a Kenny Galladay type receiver who just outmuscles everybody. All he does is gets physical and goes deep. Well, then maybe you're going with Aaron Robinson because he's a bit taller and he's a bit stronger. But what if the guy is a bit faster, more nimble, an Amari Cooper type player, right? Who is pretty tall, he's physical, but he's also a very good route runner. He's very nimble. I might go with Darnay Holmes in that situation. I think the Giants can be pretty adaptive because they have cornerbacks that can kind of match up with any skill set, and they're not pigeonholed into having cornerbacks that all do the same thing, which I really like. So, yeah, I'm going with Darnay Holmes. I think he's got more experience, and I really like what he brings to the table. But I do think Aaron Robinson is going to see plenty of playing time just because he also has the ability to match up better versus specific types of wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good argument. I think I'm going to go slightly different in saying that I think Darnay ends up the starting slot and Aaron Robinson ends up the starting CB2 just based on the fact that Robinson, has the size and he's also 6'1", so he has 3 inches on Darnay Holmes. So I think that size, frame, wingspan, aggressiveness, it all kind of plays into, why he should be that CB2. I also think like he has the experience from last year at the position, and the times he got beat were mainly downfield, and he just didn't get his head turned around. So I think, correcting that, the Giants have one of the best DB coaches in Jerome Henderson. So I think I'll go with Aaron Robinson at CB2 and Darnay in the slot, but that's still a great role for Darnay. He has the physicality, he's strong, he has experience, he had some really good games. I remember that game against Seattle where he had the interception. Like, he's made good plays. Like, he's a good player. He just needs more experience and he needs more reps. But I think this aggressive style where he can showcase what he can do as a tackler and what he can do as a physical man coverage guy, that's where he's going to shine. I think he's better in man than he is in zone. And I think that's kind of why we're kind of advocating for him now, because Wink Martindale's system really relies on these aggressive guys. James Bradbury, why do you think the Giants got rid of him aside from money? He wasn't a scheme fit anymore. You know what I mean? He's not an aggressive. He's not a man coverage guy. He's a zone guy. He drops back into coverage. Like, he gets burned downfield. Darnay has good makeup speed. He has good speed in general. He's aggressive, physical. He can latch onto a guy's hip. Brian was telling me today that he's mastered the inside. He's mastered that nickel position. Like, he just needs the reps. Like, what are you supposed to do when you're getting like spotty opportunities every now and then with no consistency? Like, you're never going to be able to showcase what you can do there. So I think with the lack of talent at the position, I think Darnay can do a lot. And I think he's going to be one of those dark horse guys that isn't being talked about enough right now, but he's going to end up starting. He's going to have a good year. So we'll see what happens, guys. Love to hear your opinion on this. Definitely interesting topic. And, this nickel role is up for grabs. There's a lot of good players to talk about and discuss. We've kind of touched on Darnay and then Cordell Flott as well. But let us know what you think in the comment section below. As always, my friends, make sure to like and subscribe. Show us some love. Really appreciate it. Daily content, as always, for you guys. No problems. And we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.